Welcome at this webinar about the do's and don'ts during the cleaning process in poultry houses. In this webinar we're going to talk about the basics of the whole cleaning process, but also some practical tips and tricks that you can use on farm to make a huge improvement with just simple steps. My name is Nick Paradans. I'm an international hygiene specialist for the Shippers Group. And the Shippers Group is a family-owned business. This year we celebrate our 60-year anniversary already, and our goal is to focus on hygiene management on one side and also the support of the birds on the other side. The goal of what we want to achieve is to decrease the level of germs, pathogens in the surroundings of our animals, and on the other side increase their resistance, increase their health, to get the best performance out of it. This will result in lower antibiotic use and better technical and financial results. Thereby, we are supported by our research and development team, and they are always developing and trying to improve products. Think about cleaners, disinfectants, water treatments, etc. We develop everything in-house, but we also manufacture it by ourselves. And then we support our own teams throughout the world, but also our distributors to make the next step in poultry hygiene. Now, let's talk about hygiene, but maybe first it's good to talk about what is the return on investment if we can improve hygiene. Now, I always like to refer to a research strategy that is developed by the GD Health Organization, a big vet practice in the Netherlands. And they were really looking to effect how can we monitor the effect of the cleaning and disinfection, and how can we combine it with technical and financial performances on farm. So what's the ROI of cleaning and disinfection? So also, if you put some effort in it, will you get a certain return on investment? Then they have developed a new test. It's called the virus check. And in those tests, they are searching for 5 different viruses that are non-enveloped viruses. And what you see on the screen, the non-enveloped viruses are very difficult to kill, and especially the small ones. You see on the graph on the screen, you see on the top side that are the pathogens that are more resistant to disinfectants, and on the bottom side you see the ones that are more susceptible to disinfectants. So the higher you are in that pyramid, the more resistant against those disinfectants. So if we don't find those small non-enveloped viruses anymore in our barn, then we can also say that our cleaning and disinfection was from a good order. Now, they've collected 5 different non-enveloped viruses, both small and large ones, and those ones can only be transmitted in a horizontal way, so they're not able to travel in a vertical way. So they will not come from the breeder or the hatchery towards the broiler farm, but they stay on broilers. Maybe good to mention, this research has been done on broiler flocks. Now, and they're going to search for those 5 non-enveloped viruses. How are they going to do it? They take cloaca swabs on day 6 or 7 of age of the broilers, send them to the laboratory, search for those 5 viruses, and they look for the are the viruses available, of can we find the viruses in that test, but also in a certain pressure. How big is that pressure that we can find? Now, if they have collected that data, then you can create a score. They have created a score from 0 to 120. The closer you go to 0, the better your cleaning and disinfection process in general was. So that also means that they can't find, or just in a small amount, some viruses. If you have a score of 120, then you have a huge pressure in your barn after your cleaning and disinfection process. So that you've done a bad job. Let's put it that way. And interesting to know, they've also collected all the technical data from the farms, and they have performed this trial on Dutch farms, Dutch broiler farms, from 26 different barns, different farms, and also multiple flocks in a row. So they've collected all the data, and they saw some very nice things, and that's in the table below as well on the screen. They say if you can decrease the score of the VEER check with 60 points, so for example you go from score 80 to score 20, then they see on average that the mortality will drop with almost 1%, the feed conversion rate will drop with 3 points, and the daily weight gain will go up with 2.4 grams per day. So let's say if you have the birds until 42 days, then that's approximately 100 grams extra. How come? Because of course you feed the birds and they take in that energy, and that energy can be used or for growth or for building up resistance and fight against pathogens. So the lower the amount of pathogens in the surroundings, the bigger the part of that feed, of that energy that they can put into growth. So it's pretty logical, but it's always good to keep this in mind, that whatever you do regarding cleaning and disinfection, and the better you do it, it will also give you a very good return on investment. So it's worthwhile to do a proper job and to do it every time again. Now then, in this VEER check, we talked about the whole cleaning and disinfection process, but in this webinar we're going to focus only on the cleaning step. And regarding cleaning step, we would like to walk you through this table to give you a better understanding about the cleaning in total, but also what you can achieve regarding cleaning and reduction of pathogens. So as an example, immediately after removal of the birds out of the house, and this table shows you broilers, but that can be in general, also with layers or breeders or pullets, you name it. After you take out the birds and the manure is still in the barn, you see that you have a pressure of 50 million germs per square centimeters. And if you take in mind that your barn is pretty big and consists out of a lot of square centimeters, you know that you have a huge pressure in your barn. So you want to get rid of that. You want to control it, you want to reduce it. What do? You take out the manure and you start flushing, so that most of the dust, most of the manure rest, etc. Are gone. And then you see that you will end up with around 20 million germs per square centimeter. So that's already a reduction of 60%. You go from 50 to 20 million germs. But if you have flushed the barns, you did the first rinse, everything looks visually clean. But is that so? And where are those remaining 20 million germs per square centimeter? Those are based in the fat layer, or the real organic material that has been left after the cycle. So that originates from the whole, the poop of the birds, of course, but also the bedding and everything what enters the barn. So you really want to get rid of this part. You can only do that with proper detergents. So the real cleaning part will be done by detergents. And if you choose the right product and you apply it in the right way, but we're going to talk about that later in this webinar, then you can really see a big reduction, and then you go from 20 million to 100,000 germs per square centimeter. 100,000 germs per square centimeter still sounds as a huge amount, but that's already a reduction of more than 95% of the original load of pathogens. So you see how important a proper cleaning and disinfection in the whole process is. If you take a look at the other steps, the remaining steps, that they are the disinfection steps, so both in the wet or a dry way, that's just the finishing touch. But it all starts with a proper cleaning. So that's why we would like to give you some more background information and some practical tips and tricks to move forward and to improve your whole cleaning process. But then it's important to know, what type of barn pollution do we know? What do we see in the barn? That can be divided into two parts. On the left side we see organic pollution, what I mentioned before, that comes from manure, fat, feed, skin fat, you name it. So that contains a lot of organic matter. On the other side you see the inorganic pollution. And I think if you have cleaned a poultry barn yourself, or you're a farmer yourself, you've definitely seen this as well. For example, that white lime scale that you see on the picture as well. But it could also be the brownish color from iron, or some black from manganese. So then you really talk about the minerals. Most of the time those minerals come from the surrounding, let's say from the drinking water or the water that you use to clean the barn. And together they can also form a nice combination of it, so that organic and inorganic pollution will combine forces, let's say, and then it's even more difficult to get rid of. Then we need to follow certain steps to make an improvement in that. The most important part to know is that the whole biofilm that we have, is it organic or inorganic, it all contains pathogens. And especially the organic part, that's the most dangerous one of the two. Because organic pollution is also feed for all the pathogens that we have. So the pathogens use that pollution as feed to feed them, and then they can develop and they can multiply. And in the same way, both organic and inorganic pollution will also provide protection for them. So it will provide them. It will protect them against different disinfectants, against heat, against UV light. So you need to get rid of this pollution before you're gonna disinfect. If you don't perform this step, if you don't remove that pollution, you can disinfect whatever you want. Maybe your scores with the Rodac plates are good, but that does not mean that your pathogen load is low. It's still there. They still has the time to increase, because the feed is still there. You've added water because you rinsed the barn, and afterwards you're heating up the barn as well. So all the factors, water, feed and temperature, are there and are ideal for a lot of pathogens to grow, to develop, to multiply. So we need to get rid of this kind of pollution. So we need a soap. But the question is a soap a soap? Most of the time I hear in practice that, I use already a soap. But if I still see the pollution that you see on the image on the left side, and you still see that brownish discoloration of the drinking lines, for example, then is that clean? Was that soap good enough? Or was your application not correct? Or it could have multiple causes that it didn't work, didn't do its job. So we will dive deeper in that today. So here are a few examples. Here you see on the left side that the cleaning was not done properly. So this could be the result of a bad quality of your cleaning product, or if you only have cleaned with just water. Doesn't matter if it's hot or cold water, just water. On the right side you see that this drinking line is brand new. It's shiny, it's white. So this one is really has been cleaned very well, very thoroughly. So this is what we want to see. So every flock we would like to start with a, let's say, brand new barn. Same goes for the feeding pans. If you take a look at the left side, you still see that you have that brownish discoloration. You have some parts with the manure still on, sometimes some white spots with the urine-based part. And on the right side, you see what the goal should be. So a brand new, fully cleaned feeding pan. But then it's important to know what is important to get the best results. So what is important to get this clean feeding pen? There are 4 factors that are very important to improve your cleaning process. That could be temperature, high pressure, so your pressure washer, contact time, but also the quality of the product. So how effective is it in cleaning? You see that the brown color, that's the one that belongs to temperature, is a very small one. A lot of people think that temperature is really helpful for cleaning, and especially in a barn. Is that true? Yes and no. Temperature can be very effective and can really support the effectiveness of your cleaning products, but but the problem is, how can you reach that right temperature to be really effective and to support that detergent? If you take a look at the theory, you really need to reach a temperature of 50, 60, 70 degrees to improve your cleaning effect. In practice, that's not really achievable in a barn. Because what happens, for example, you work with a steam cleaner that produces hot water, steam, but you have connected a hose of, let's say, 50 or 100 meters length to it. That's laying on the cold surface, the cold floor. Afterwards, you start spraying, so it comes in contact with cold air in the barn, because it's not 50 or 60 degrees inside of the barn. And afterwards, the droplets will touch your cold surface. And with a concrete layer, for example, of 30 or 40 centimeters, that will not heat up within a second or a millisecond when you pass over with your high pressure unit. So you see in practice that temperature is just a very small part in the whole circle. The power of the high pressure unit, that's the purple part in this overview, that stays more or less the same. So it doesn't really make a big difference if you clean with 150 or 200 bars of pressure. It stays more or less the same. So this one stays the same. Temperature is just a small part. So you need to compensate that loss of temperature with the other things, so that we have left the contact time and the quality of the product. So in the end, you see, the better the quality of the product, so the more powerful this cleaner is, and at the same time, the longer the contact time of product with surface, the better your cleaning result. But be aware of the fact that this is a sum. So it's below as well. The effectivity is quality of product times contact time. So if one of the parts, so or quality or contact time, has a very low score, then you still have a very small sum. So let's say quality of the product has score 5 out of 5. 5 is the best, but contact time is a 1 out of 5, then you still have a score of 5. And the maximum that you can have is 5 times 5 is 25. So it really needs to be good from both sides. If you take a look at the first part, so the quality of the product, you can really test it. So you can see how powerful this cleaner is in removing organic pollution or inorganic pollution, depends on what you want to get rid of. In this case, because of the fact that we develop our products ourselves, we also have a tool to see how good our cleaners will clean, and if we want to improve something, do we have an improved version, yes or no? We use a tool that's also used by the TNO, also for official researches and comparisons. So what we do, we will bake a certain pollution on a steel plate, and we attach, we put that plate into a device. The device contains a sponge, and on that sponge we will put a droplet of the product, and that sponge will go over that plate with the pollution for a couple of times for a set number of repetitions. And then after that amount you can analyze what was the score, so how much of that pollution has been removed. So you see in this example that the product on the left was very powerful, so it cleaned, let's say, 99% of all the pollution that was left, was baked on the surface. And on the right side you see that it only cleaned 55% of the dirt. So soap is a soap? No, a soap is not a soap. If you take a look already at the quality of the product, you can see that it can have huge differences. So if you check it, always go for the quality of the product. And at the same time, you also have to go for the contact time. The longer the contact time, the better the dissolving effect of the pollution is. But how do you create that contact time? Most of the time we use foam. If we use foam, then that has a few benefits. One is the contact time. It really sticks to the surface if you have a proper foam quality. But it's also visible, so we see what kind of surface we have touched with that foam. So you can see what you have done, yeah, you have the longer contact time, so you can really have that benefit. But let's focus on the contact time. You see in this example that you also have huge difference in the contact time. So example on the left, product X. When you apply it at 0 minutes after applying, you see a foam, but you also see that's already going down. It's kind of a bit of a watery foam. Around 15 minutes contact time, we still see that's a bit wet, but we don't see the real foam anymore. And after 30 minutes, it's completely gone, it's dried up. On the right side, we see with one of our products, the Top Foam Power, that it's still there after 30 minutes, so that the foam is still touching the surface. As long as you have that contact time between product and surface, you will have that effect. Then it's cleaning. Looking at product X, you see that after 15 minutes or maybe already earlier, it doesn't do anything anymore. You can leave it on if you want, but there is nothing to be left on. There's no foam anymore with active ingredients. It's all fallen down. So very important, and especially when you talk about contact time with vertical surfaces. Looking at the vertical surfaces, we see that we have a lot of drinking lines and feeding lines in the barn, and of course we also have the walls. So it's not just the floor. In the floor you will have your contact time, but also the drinking lines and the feeding lines and the walls. And especially the drinkers and the feeders are very important, because that's the first contact moment of the bird in the barn. So when the bird comes in, he goes immediately to the feed and the water and will come in contact with pathogens if the cleaning and disinfection was not properly done. But how big is that surface in total? It's around 40% of all surfaces in a barn are vertical. So it's crucial that you have a detergent that foams well, but that clings to the surface for a long time. Maybe also good to tell, we always go for a minimum contact time of 30 minutes. But again, important to know, after those 30 minutes you still need to have foam covered on that surface. And after those 30 minutes you can start rinsing, cleaning off. But we talk about detergents in basics. Coming back to one of the first slides, what are the different detergents that we have? We can divide it into two parts, one for organic pollution, one for inorganic pollution. Focusing on organic pollution, what the basic pollution is in the barn. We always have the manure, we always have the feed rest in it, so we always have that fat, proteins, minerals in the barn. So we always need to go for an alkaline cleaner. So an alkaline cleaner is one with a very high pH. On the other hand, if we see some problems with inorganic pollution, so iron, lime scale, manganese, then we have to go for an acidic cleaner. And sometimes we have a combination of both, then also work with both products. So first go for an alkaline cleaner because you need to remove that organic pollution first to go for that inorganic pollution that's mainly based underneath it. So that's important to know. And in some farms they're going to alternate between it. So that alkaline products are the base. So every downtime that you have, every cleaning time, that you use the alkaline product, and acidic when needed. So that can be, let's say, every 3 flocks, every year, or maybe more or maybe less. But it depends on the situation. So you always have to check it by yourself what the pollution is and what should be the plan of approach. So coming back to the whole cleaning process, first of all, when the manure is out, please make a rinse so that all the dust is gone, all the manure rests are gone, because otherwise if you apply a detergent on top of that manure, on top of that dust, it blocks the effect because it's creating a barrier for the dirt for the detergent to really get in touch with the pollution that you want to get rid of. When it is clean, then you have the next step, then you go for the disinfection. We will not talk about the disinfection today, that will be for another webinar, the do's and don'ts about disinfecting, but let's stay focused on the cleaning for now. So first of all, make sure that you are getting rid of all the dirt. So you can use high volumes of water, low pressure, just flushing. Start from the top to the bottom. So make sure that also the dust from the ceiling has been gone, all the inlets, the walls, drinking lines, feeding lines, so that there is no barrier for that detergent left anymore. Then you start foaming. So applying the detergent, and then the question is, what are the surfaces that you want to touch? We always say the minimum that we want to foam, that we want to clean with the detergent, are the floor, the first meter of the walls, and the drinking and the feeding lines. Because these surfaces are the direct contact surfaces with the birds, so these need to be clean. And if you have direct contact surfaces with the birds, you also know that there is the fat, the protein from the manure, from the feed rest. Most of the time in the rest of the barn is mostly dust. So also the ceiling, mostly dust, and can be washed off pretty quickly and easily with just water. Still, it's good to foam every now and then the whole barn, but please focus first. If you do this already in a proper way, then you have won already a lot. So please focus on the direct contact surfaces with the birds. And afterwards, when everything is clean, please let it dry in. Take your time. All the materials, all the installations are all complete dry before you start disinfection, because otherwise you will dilute your disinfectant. This can be done in a wet and a dry way, but what I mentioned already before, that's for another webinar. It's also important to check the quality of the cleaning before you start with disinfection. Because if you still see this image, what we see here on the right side, you still see that brownish discoloration. We still see some spider webs, other pollution on the bottom side of the feeding pens. That means that there is still that fat layer, still that organic pollution left. So you still have that barrier for your disinfectant over there. So you can disinfect it, but it will not help. Your disinfectant will react away with the dirt and the efficacy is gone. So focus on proper cleaning and monitor it. So I would like to show you a few don'ts, so things that we see in practice and that we really could improve. And why should we improve? Because that will improve your whole cleaning and disinfection process, will lower your pathogen load, and thereby will benefit you more. What we saw in the beginning, we have a better technical and financial result in the end. So the examples on the left side and the right side, for example, this is with detergent on top. So I took this picture a few minutes after applying detergent. So you still see, you see that there is almost no foam left on the surface. So if the foam is gone, that means that it all has fallen down on the floor. So there is no active ingredient anymore on that surface. So we will not clean on that part. So make sure that the foam quality that you use is thick, like shaving foam, and that it really sticks to that surface for 30 minutes. I have a video attached here in the middle to give you an idea about different qualities of foam. So in this video you see that you are working with very watery foam, so it really sinks to the bottom, so there is no contact time. Oh, now it should work.
Acid foam.
I draw a line, but you still see how quickly the foam will walk down. I will play it again. So it's really sinking to the bottom. So in this case you have a very bad quality of foam. So you have foam, so you think you're doing a good job, but if it doesn't stick and it's gone after a few minutes, then the effect is gone. Other few don'ts that we see quite often in the barn, and I can take many pictures of that. I have already many pictures of that. You see that a lot of people only foam the drinking and feeding lines from one side, so only from the right side or only from the left side. So only part of that drinking line, part of the feeding line has been covered. So one part will be degreased and one part still contains the fat and the protein. So birds will still come in contact with that fat layer, with that germ pressure. Also, on the right picture, they have tried to foam it from both sides, but most of the time with feeding lines they hang them completely on the ground or very close to the ground, and thereby the bottom side of both lines and the bottom side of the feeding pans are not accessible for foam. So you cannot reach them with the foam, so it will not be cleaned over there. But you still contain a layer of pathogens. Some other examples where you should focus on. For example, the picture on the left side, that's the wall that you see here. And you see that the wall is only foamed partly. So they were just spraying around in that barn and only hit few spots of the wall. You see that the top part of the wall has been foamed better than the bottom side. But the bottom side is the most crucial one because that's the contact surface with the birds. The second picture, for example, maybe it's a little bit more difficult to see, but what you see here, you see that there were still lots and lots of manure rests laying on the ground, and we just foamed on top of it. Everything what's in or underneath those manure rests cannot be cleaned, cannot be degreased, cannot be touched by a detergent. So you really need to prepare your barn properly for before you start foaming, before you start applying your detergent. The third picture shows you a feeding pan from let's say the inside, more difficult to reach, but you still see that there are the white spots from the urine of the manure, the urinate part. So that spot is more difficult to reach because you really have to go, let's say, inside of that feeding pan, but still very important, and in this case it was not hit at all. On the right side you see a picture of the floor, and on the left side of that picture you see that it's more dark. That part still contains a lot of fat, so they have not degreased, foamed the floor well enough. On the side on the right, I've put an extra concentration of detergent on the floor, rinse it off, and afterwards you see that it is like new again, and the concrete is gray again instead of dark. So then you really see how much dirt is still left in that concrete layer. That concrete layer acts like a sponge, so all that dirt, all those pathogens will go inside that concrete, and so they have to be removed in a proper way. So only by a very good or extra degreasing step, especially on the floor, you can achieve that. Other don'ts, on the left side of the slide you see a few examples of floors that we also come across with. The worse the quality of the floor is, the more difficult to clean. So you also see that you have a lot of residues inside all the cracks and the gaps that you have, and that contains reservoirs of all the bacteria. You also see that feeding pen that hasn't been cleaned enough. The third picture on the top is one of the inlets that I saw on the farm. They have only opened a few air inlets, so only also cleaned a few, and the rest still contains lots of dirt, but in this case also lots of spider nest. So lots of organic pollution, also a big risk if you open up this air inlet in summertime when you need more inlets. So it's crucial to clean that as well. Some other examples inside of the feeding pens, inside of the feeding lines, but also in the parts for the hopper, for example. A bit difficult to see on the picture on the right side below. It still contains a mouse and some feed, a dead mouse and some feed after cleaning. So yeah, then you can say it was not great. So to summarize that part, be aware of the fact that you prepare your barn very well, so manure rest, everything is gone, that all surface that you want to clean, that you want to decrease, that they are accessible. For example, open all the inlets, remove hoppers that you can clean other things, remove the bottom side of the feeding pens if necessary, but be sure that it's accessible for cleaners. But also be aware of the fact that you are hitting every spot that you want to hit. So not just foaming from one side. No, a feeding line and a drinking line always need to be hit from at least two sides, that this one is fully covered with foam. We also saw a few images and a movie about the quality of the foam. That also depends of the application tools that you use on farm. I think many of you will recognize the foam bottle, for example. Normally you have a very good quality of foam, a dry foam, but most of the time that also results in a way higher usage rate than you think. Most of the time the minimum dosage rate of this kind of tools is 1 or 1.5%, and also good to know, most of the time you have some numbers on the foam bottle from 0 to 10, and then most people think position 2 is 2%, but this is just a position. It's not related to concentration. It all depends of your high pressure unit, so always calibrate this before you use it. But most of the time your usage rate is way too high than necessary. And thereby you have possibilities to have direct contact with your product, and if you have a powerful product, it's also quite aggressive in pure form. So be aware of the fact that you will not get in touch with those products, so prepare yourself as well with the right measures. Then on the other side there are also multiple options to make sure that you always have the right concentration, so that also your employees are not able to change the concentration, so that you're not dosing not enough but also not too much, so always the right concentration that you prescribe as well, and that can tackle the effect of the contact with the products. So with these tools you're not in contact with products, so very safe to use. So that can come in different forms as well. But the most important part is that you know what the concentration is, that it's set, that it's every time, over and over again, that it is the same, and that nobody can change it. And an extra very important benefit for your employees is that they won't get hurt by the product in pure form. What I mentioned below, and that's why I also took all the pictures that I showed already in the presentation, monitoring is key. So please check the quality of cleaning after your cleaning crew or employees were done, because then you can really optimize your process. Again, you can have a very good product, very powerful, very long contact time, but when the application is not correct, or you don't monitor, you don't check it, you cannot improve. So you need to combine everything. So to do that, we have developed an online scoring tool. It's called the HiCare app. So it's an application on your phone. And with this application, you can score the quality of the cleaning. So then you can really see over time that you are improving or not. So you're collecting evidence with pictures, and you automatically get a score that belongs to it as well. So you make a subjective thing more objective. But then you can really see, hey, we are making progress. So monitoring is key to really improve your whole process. To summarize a couple of things, what are the do's and what are the don'ts? Let's start with the do's. The first thing, what I mentioned on the slide, is why. That's a very important question, because if your employees or your team does not know why it is important to clean properly and why we should use foam or why we should do this or that, they don't understand it and they don't participate in the best way. So always walk them through the process and explain him why it is important to follow certain steps. Afterwards, make a plan. So what are the right steps during the cleaning process, also regarding timeline, and that you have enough time to do everything. Use high pressure units, so the higher the pressure, so let's say 150 or 200 bars is better than 10 bars or 20 bars. Choose the right type of detergent, so what kind of pollution is it and what kind of detergent do I need to use? Is it organic pollution with an alkaline product, or is it inorganic pollution, minerals, that we have to remove with an acidic product? Choose also the right high quality detergent, so a powerful one, so that it cleans very properly, but in the same time that it also clings for a long time to that specific surface that you want to clean. Choose the right technique, application technique, that focuses on concentration and that you don't dose too much but also not enough. So the right concentration, that you can create a dry foam so that you can achieve that contact time. It's easy to use, but also that it's safe for your employees. Make sure that you have a full coverage of all the contact surfaces that come in contact with the birds, so drinking lines, feeding lines, first meter of the wall, and the complete floor. That's a must. You also have to apply the foam in a homogeneous layer. That means it's not better to put more foam on a certain surface. If, for example, if I stand still and foam on a certain surface, the foam will become heavy and will sink quicker to the bottom. So just one nice layer of foam, it's enough. Just cover it, that's it. And afterwards, check the quality. Also check the quality of the foam, of course, but especially check the quality of the cleaning, and thereby you can improve step by step. Some extra don'ts that we have not discussed yet. Always rinse first before you apply the foam, that there is no barrier left. Don't let the detergent dry in. If the detergent has dried in, it has no efficacy anymore. It doesn't work anymore. So that's important to know. So always be aware that as long as the foam is there, so the quality of the foam is good and still there, you know that it's still active and that it hasn't been dried in. Otherwise it's dried in and you have to apply the foam again to get rid of your own foam. Less than 30 minutes contact time is not enough. The longer the contact time, the better your cleaning effect. And always be aware of the fact that you are aware of the concentration of product that you use. So always enough, but not enough, not too much. So be sure that you calibrate your devices and that you know exactly what you should use, and compare that with what you have used in the end. And now it's time for the Q&A. I see that there are already a couple of questions coming in. If you still have some questions left, please drop them in the chat, and we will try to answer them as good as possible. Also, besides that, I also have received a couple of questions already before the webinar, because those people couldn't attend, so we will discuss a couple of them as well. To start with the first question, we need the thermal fogging rates for your disinfectants when using a dram pulse fogger. Thank you for that question. Sorry that we hadn't discussed it during the webinar, because that one was purely focused on cleaning. This is more the disinfection part, so maybe also for another webinar that we will discuss this. But what we normally do, what we normally advise for fogging is 5% concentration of in this case, the Megadus Nova, what we're talking about. So hopefully that answers the question. Can we use hot water to apply the top foam power? In practice, yes, it is possible, but please don't do it, because we see that the foam quality becomes worse when you apply it with hot water. So always be sure that you apply the foam with cold water. Then you have a better foam, thicker foam, stays better to the surface, and then you have a better effect. You can use hot water afterwards to rinse it off, of course, but please do not use it while foaming. Maybe also another thing to take in mind that could negatively affect the foam quality of detergents in general is the hardness of the water. If you have very hard water, and then I mean water that has a hardness, a German hardness above 15 degrees, then you see that your foam quality will be less and less. So that will drop, the quality will drop with more or less 50%. So that's quite a bit. So if you have hard water, please take in mind that it could negatively affect your foam quality. Is it possible to have the presentation after the webinar? Now, this is pretty easy to answer. Yes, we will share the recording of this webinar afterwards, so you will definitely receive that via email. Another question, can the surface be wet when applying soap? Yes, we're always we're always in a hurry during the cleaning process, so it's definitely possible to apply the foam when it's wet. Be aware of the fact that if you really have puddles on the floor, for example, or if you have a lot of water that's staying inside of the drinking cups underneath the drinking line, then it's always good to remove that first, because if you apply the foam on top of that layer of water, it will only be diluted and it will not have the effect. So in case of the puddles on the floor, please take them away with a squeegee, for example. And otherwise, if you have a drinking line and the water is still in the cups, please shake the line a bit, and then you see that all the water is going out of the cups, and then it's the best way to apply the foam. In case of spraying foam on more porous surfaces like concrete walls or wooden walls, I would definitely recommend to be sure that it's a little bit wet, because otherwise the whole foam will be pulled in, let's say, and not a lot will, then it dries in too quickly. So if you make it a little bit wet before, that's better to do. In Egypt, we have the problem of hot weather, which affect the quality of the foam. Do you have any advice? Very good question. Yes. one difference can also be made by the foam itself. If the foam quality is very good, so you have created, like, let's say, like a thick foam, it's also it will take more time before it dries in. Thereby, I would also recommend you to, during foaming, that you will close all the doors, all the air inlets. Please be sure that the fans are not running, so that you have no air movement. So that it's also, yeah, then the foam gets more time to react before it can dry. And in that way, with those tips, you can definitely, yeah, make sure that the contact time will be longer and longer. Afterwards, when you start spraying, of course, if you start rinsing again afterwards, you can definitely open the fans, the doors, the inlets again, because you, yeah, need to get rid of the mist, of course, but you bring in that much water that and moist that it will not dry in anymore. Is there a recommended order for using the products? Is there any danger when the products are mixed? Um, yeah, and I'm not sure if that's meant that we focus on the different products, but then the different cleaners with alkaline and or acidic, for example. If that's the case, if that's the question behind the question, then I would definitely say, okay, hey, please do not mix products, just to be sure that everything will be fine, that the product still has its efficacy. Um, so that's important. And for the rest, if you have, let's say, the two different kind of pollution, so you have the organic pollution in the barn and the inorganic pollution, always be sure that you will apply an alkaline foam first to remove the fat layer, rinse it off, and afterwards apply the acidic product, um, to get rid of, let's say, the lime scale or the rest of the inorganic pollution after. So do not mix different types of products, because that can negatively affect and or neutralize each other. Can you apply foam with foaming nozzles on an air blast sprayer? Um, I'm not really, I'm not sure what you mean with the air blast sprayer, but if that also has higher pressure, you can definitely use, yeah, apply foam with foaming nozzles normally. But be aware, please check what the quality of the foam is afterwards, that we make sure that, yeah, everything is going well. What pressure should be used apply when the high back gun? Now, most of the time, ideally you go for, yeah, 150, 200 bars. That's always ideal. That's both for a high back gun, but also for a foam bottle or a green line or whatever. So um, the higher the pressure, then you also can create a more drier foam in the end. Sorry that I forgot your question, Dragos. Um, I don't see any more questions coming in. I still have a few questions that came in before. Um, how aggressive are these detergents towards equipment, like galvanized steel? Now it depends, of course, of the type of product in the first time, but also the type of the material. For all our products, we do corrosion tests. So what we do, we apply the normal concentration that we use. So, for example, for a top fan power, we apply it on 2%. So we have took a few different materials, so galvanized steel, stainless steel, plastics, aluminium, copper, that kind of different materials, and we have brought them in contact with that 2% concentration of product for 7 days in a row, so for a very long contact time, because we want to test it in an extreme way. and then we don't see any damage regarding those materials. But we have done that for the cleaners, we have done that for disinfectants, and for every product it could be different. But if you have some specific cases, please let us know, and we have that data. Will it damage paint on trucks and cars? Yes. Regarding paint, then please be careful. Lacquered surfaces are always very critical, especially with the cleaners that you use in the barn, because in the barn you have, let's say, the more resistant materials, yeah, they can handle the more aggressive products better than on lacquered surface like trucks. So in case of trucks, vehicles, we have developed a separate a product. It's a TNT cleaner, and that's less aggressive to to the lacquered surfaces, but also aluminium and chrome and that kind of surface that you find on cars. So safer in use because of other protective components that we have put in. Okay. For the rest, I think that were most of the. Yeah, still have a few. Oh, sorry, this one is not discussed yet. Also, a good question, a good comment, I must say. I clean and disinfect 1 time per year in spring because it's obligated in my country. But when I do that, I see that the technical performances will go down. And you are telling me that, yeah, normally when I was in discussion before with him, you're telling me that it is better to, yeah, that the better hygiene will result in better technical performances. Good question. We see this a lot as well. That's only 1 or 2 times per year that people are cleaning. Be aware of the fact that if you only clean and disinfect 1 or 2 times per year, then you have, let's say, 3 cycles or even 6, 7 cycles in a row that in which you can build up that pollution, that organic material. And in that organic material, there's a very big load of pathogens. So when you try to clean that only once, don't expect that you can remove everything immediately with one step, because you have a buildup of many cycles. You cannot expect that it will be gone within one treatment. So what you can see, and that's also what you mentioned in the question before, is that if you apply the foam once, so you take away part of that biofilm, that fat layer, then you see that you will take away part of that fat layer, but not all. So you have opened that biofilm layer a bit, so the animals can come in contact with the pathogens that are still left on the surface. So in this case, I would always recommend to do the cleaning twice with a detergent, just to be sure that you remove most, or let's say all of that huge buildup of organic material and pathogens. But definitely, it is possible that you can see more of that. Yeah. What about ADTA in your product? What do you mean with the question? If was that about aggressivity, or could you maybe add a couple of things to it? And otherwise, I will come back to that question if you send me an email afterwards. For the rest, maybe also good to mention, because we started with the fact that we can improve we can improve our technical performances if we take care of better hygiene management. I also hear a lot that yeah, that people say, okay, hey, it's nice that you talk about hygiene, about putting extra effort in cleaning and disinfecting, and it only costs me time, money, and I have no problems, I have no issues. So why should I do that? Why should I take that extra step? Um, Now, that would be my suggestion. You don't have to be sick to become better in the end. So it does not mean that you should have seen the issues before you have to act. You can always, if you have no issue, that also does not mean that your birds are performing already in the best way. Are they reaching already their genetic potential that they have? In most cases, I can say no. So there's always room for improvement. So also when you see no issues, you can still perform better. Um, Sorry, I see your comment about the EDTA. I've read that part in the question, but I'm not sure what you meant with it. What about EDTA in your product? What's the question? Is it related to corrosion of materials? Is that related to something else? And otherwise, maybe to end up, because we're doing now already for an hour. Let's wrap up. If you still have some remaining questions, and especially this one about EDTA, what I couldn't answer right now, um, please let me know. You can send me an email to my email address. You can see it here on the screen as well. And otherwise, you can scan the QR code, and then you will be forwarded to my LinkedIn page. So please let me know if you have any remaining questions, and we're happy to answer them. Um, for the rest, I would like to thank you for your attention, your questions, and what I mentioned before. I will definitely come back to your question about EDTA. Um, and for the rest, I would like to inform you that in a month, on April 22nd, we will have our next webinar in our series, and that has everything to do with cleaning in place, so SIP cleaning in a hatchery, and we have gained some more new insights about it. And my colleague Tom Klein-Zieverink will take you way on the trip inside of the hatchery. So April 22nd. And please stay in touch within the social media, and yeah, then you can subscribe for that one. Thank you very much, and have a nice